At the recent United Nations meeting, India delivered a diplomatically worded message, subtly criticizing China for its role in obstructing proposals to blacklist terrorists with global sanctions. The focal point of contention rested on the rejection of such evidence-based listings, a move opposed by India. In her address to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, India's representative, didn't shy away from questioning the legitimacy of certain subsidiary bodies operating within the UN system, particularly scrutinizing their opaque practices which seemingly undermine the principles outlined in the Charter or relevant Council resolutions. Our report will give you the details.
Thank you, Mr. President.
India continues its strong and focused commitment to help UN member states build capacity to prevent and counter terrorism. Along with huge monetary contributions in the fight against terrorism, New Delhi is always very vocal about this global threat. In a recent UNSC session, India, in a resolute stance, condemned nations exploiting veto powers to obstruct evidence-based terrorist listings at the United Nations Security Council, calling it hypocritical amid the Council's anti-terrorism commitment. In what appeared to be a thinly veiled critique aimed at China, India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, highlighted the opaque practices of certain subsidiary bodies operating within the UN system, questioning their legitimacy under the Charter or relevant Council's resolutions.
Let us turn to the subsidiary bodies inhabiting a subterranean world. With their own custom-made working methods and obscure practices which do not find any legal basis in the Charter or any of the Council's resolutions. For instance, while we do get to know of the decisions of these committees on listing, the decisions on rejecting listing requests are not made public. This is a disguised veto, but an even more impervious one that indeed merits a discussion amongst the wider membership. For genuine, evidence-based listing proposals for globally sanctioned terrorists to be blocked without giving any due justification is uncalled for and smacks of doublespeak when it comes to the Council's commitment in tackling the challenge of terrorism.
In a persistent pattern, China has consistently defended its ally, Pakistan, within the United Nations. China has time and again created hurdles when it comes to listing known Pakistani terrorists. Last year, in June, Beijing imposed a technical hold on a proposal jointly put forth by India and the United States to designate Pakistani terrorist Sajid Mir as a global terrorist under the 1267 Al-Qaeda Sanctions Committee. This was not an isolated incident. In September 2022, China had delayed a similar proposal concerning Mir at the UN. Mir is India's most wanted terrorist and the main handler of the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks that shook the entire world. The attacks resulted in the deaths of 166 people and injuries to over 300. However, China's strategic use of technical holds and veto power has repeatedly thwarted efforts to hold Pakistan-based terrorists accountable on the global stage. For a proposal to be adopted, it needs consensus from all member countries. India's representative at the UN, Kamboj, emphasized the importance of transparent and inclusive processes in selecting chairs for subsidiary bodies and decision-making, advocating for greater accountability and fairness within the UN framework.
The selection of chairs of subsidiary bodies and distribution of pen holderships must be made through a process which is open, which is transparent, which is based on exhaustive consultations and with a more integrated perspective. The consensus of the E10 on chairs of subsidiary bodies to be assumed by the E10 themselves must be absolutely honored by the P5.
China has maintained its diplomatic backing for Pakistan at the United Nations. In return, Pakistan has given up its power and territory to demonstrate its loyalty to Beijing. However, this unwavering allegiance to China, driven by promises of economic prosperity and friendship, is causing Pakistan to miss opportunities for true independence. As a result, Pakistan risks neglecting the essential needs of its own citizens. In contrast, India is determined to continue its path of progress and will work towards holding Pakistan and China accountable on the global stage.
As the threats to international peace and security evolve, Mr. President, so must this Council.